everybody. So recently there's been a very large issue with League of Legends. AD LeBlanc. This champion with this build has been completely dominant in top lane. So dominant, in fact, that Riot is trying to go out of their way to ensure it does not affect Worlds and completely is trying to kill this build. Unfortunately, this kind of annoyed the crap out of me. Why? Because there have been so many terrible decisions by Riot that have led to AD LeBlanc being viable and in fact dominant, that an issue like this was inevitable. It was foreseeable. So in order to make this video, and I have done a few takes on this video, I want to talk about the bad, terrible decisions that Riot has done in the far past, the semi-recent past, the recent past, and just now, as in they're just doing these terrible decisions that have contributed to this awful problem. So in order to talk about AD LeBlanc, we need to talk about the far past. What has Riot done that has destroyed the foundation of top lane balance? Because really, when we look into it, the problem here is top lane balance has been destroyed by Riot. So what Riot did in the far past is they nerfed Second Wind and Doran's Shield. I've talked about this many times before, but Second Wind and Doran's Shield were the foundation of top lane. So long as these two things were here, you could kind of do whatever you wanted to top lane. The foundation stood strong and you couldn't break it, right? Well, unfortunately, Doran's Shield went from 4 health regen from 6, and Second Wind went to 3 healing from 6. So Second Wind and Doran's Shield now heal for less. This weakens the foundation of top lane. Instead of now surviving many hits in a row, it kind of just collapses on the first thing that truly breaks the lane. There's no foundation. There's no counter anymore. There's no safety that you can do to prevent issues like this from occurring. Riot is very short-sighted as a company. When they need a change, they just make a change, and they don't care about what that change is going to do. Me, on the other hand, when I see changes, I always think to myself, man, that's probably not going to work well in the future. And I, of course, am always right. Because I'm right about everything, ever. It might take a while for me to be right, but I am always right. In this case, once again, we see that a ranged champion is taking over top lane. It would not take long for this to happen, okay? We are still in the very season that they have destroyed this, and we are having this problem. But it gets worse than that. In the far past, as we're talking about there, LeBlanc's balance has never been balanced. Fundamentally, Distortion is one of the hardest anti-melee abilities in the entire game. It has very little counterplay, there's not much you can do against it as a melee character, and Riot has just seemed to never actually try to balance the champion. Distortion can be used for up to 4 seconds after dashing. You do not need to distortion into an opposing champion, you can just use it as a dash. Seeing as the move does not have a lot of damage, there's not that much incentive as a player to double distortion into opposing champions or to distortion an opposing champion if they're melee at all. This means that LeBlanc can distortion forwards, hit you with your abilities. If you use your abilities trying to chase after her, she can distortion backwards for 4 seconds. With a little bit of ability haste, or just by putting ranks into the ability, there is very little downtime on her ability to double dash. Additionally, because she can distort to a location, then distort back, then distort again, it means that you will need 2 gap closers in order to keep up fully with this champion. Because she does so much damage, or because she can try to poke with distortion, this gives her an extreme amount of safety. In addition to that, distortion is one of the few abilities in the game that can break many effects that would be thrown at her. If you're in the middle of an auto attack, distortion will break it. If you're trying to hit her with a special attack or things like that, distortion will break it. If you use something like leap strike at her, distortion will break it. This makes it very, very difficult for many melee characters to interact with the champion because distortion just gives her full control of the game. AD LeBlanc top, and at the very least LeBlanc top, is not something very new to the game. It's been here for a while. Not very popular, but it's been here on and off over the years. Recently, when Riot decided to make Second Wind and Doran's Shield, they ensured that top laners could resist cheese like this, that cheese like this couldn't just dominate the game, because if it did try to get put in the game, there was a safety, the alarm signal, if you will, of Second Wind, Doran's Shield. As these are now nerfed, they are no longer strong enough to resist outside terrible effects like AD LeBlanc top. AD LeBlanc top, I just want to talk about this really quick, is so broken, in fact, that right now, in the last 2 or 3 days where it's become popularized, AD LeBlanc has gone all the way up to a 0.9% pick rate. So over the past 2 weeks, as this patch has been out, this champion has already managed to almost get up to a 1% pick rate in Masters Plus. To be clear to people, that means a lot of people are starting to spam LeBlanc, because it was not being played in mass before that. That means all these people are picking up LeBlanc, doing just fine, and more people will start to play this champion. So why is AD LeBlanc doing so good? Why doesn't she just build ability power? Because Riot has never balanced their items. Trinity Force has no downside for being ranged. The only damage that it does is based on your base AD, true. But then Riot's only response, their only attempt to try to balance the item, has been to make the base damage of champions they don't want building it really, really low. That's it. That's all they've managed to do. So Ezreal gets to have really low base damage to make Trinity Force not that overpowered on him. Trinity Force, as of right now, is not really good on melee characters at all. They removed the only modifier that made it good, or I should say better on melee characters. The movement speed used to be halved for ranged champions. It used to be 20 for melee, 10 for ranged. They got rid of that. So now the only thing that tries to balance this item for melee and range is the on-hit damage, which is really not that much. In addition, when they give it the stacking damage modifier, they made it even better on ranged champions. Ranged champions can get and keep that modifier up very, very easily. Melee characters, generally, by 3 auto attacks, they should either be killing a squishy or they should mostly have the squishy dead. Range characters can proc it up on one target, move to another, move to another, move to another. It's not very hard for them, okay? So melee characters generally just have to go Divine Sunderer so they can heal. Range characters are free to use Trinity, and because Trinity is so very high-tuned right now, perhaps over-tuned, it tends to be a very bursty ability. I assure you, for anyone wondering, I am going somewhere with this. This does have a point to it, okay? Death cap has never been balanced. The thing with AP itemization is it's kind of an all or nothing system. The only AP item they've really managed to balance on not being an all or nothing is Demonic Embrace, because Demonic Embrace's percent health damage doesn't scale on ability power. For everyone else, if you go all ability power, you get death cap, you get stronger. If you go no ability power, then you just go no ability power. It's not good to go with one AP item because all AP items are balanced on death cap. Death cap is one of the most monstrously overtuned items in the entire game. Because death cap exists, all AP items must be undertuned to balance for it. Okay? Hybrid itemization has rarely, if ever, worked, because hybrid itemization relies on the fact that you would want to pick up one AP item and not 2. The only champions, reasonably, who can use hybrid itemization for things like Static Shiv, let's talk about Static Shiv right now, are champions that kind of break the game in some way. Now, Kai'Sa can use Static Shiv because Kai'Sa has hybrid AP-AD itemization. She has evolutions that require her to build both AD and AP. Kai'Sa must go hybrid to get the full use out of her kit. Freak, in his infinite short-sightedness, decided to put an AP ratio onto Static Shiv. Now, the problem here is Static Shiv broke LeBlanc. She could go Static Shiv on her first item, then use that AP ratio, and burst the hell out of people. They have since nerfed the AP ratio from 50% all the way down to 15%, trying to control LeBlanc. Let's remember about what I've been saying here. Now that the AP ratio on this item is so low as to almost not even be a thing, like if you remove the AP ratio on this item, you might not even notice it anymore. But the problem here is that LeBlanc players picked up on this. They said, well, wait, why are we even going AP anymore? Introducing AD LeBlanc. Ta-da! We did it, everybody. AD LeBlanc, that is Trinity, Static Shiv, and Hullbreaker. The Hullbreaker so she can split push. Now, we have an item, Static Shiv, which never actually got balanced on characters like LeBlanc. Once again, some people think that it stacks slower if you use dashes, that dashes don't stack it anymore. That was only a change brought up on the PvE like once and then removed. A lot of people think that it's in the game because some members of the community spammed Twitter and acted like it was an official Riot patch note that was definitely coming out and was basically already in the game. It wasn't. It was never added into the game. This is why I always tell people, watch my videos because I actually go with what Riot says. Don't go on Twitter to get your patch notes because Basically what happens on Twitter is everyone looks at the PBE and then they say like, oh, well, this is on the PBE, so it's definitely already in the game. Well, that's not how it happens, right? We'll put changes on the PBE, then remove them if they don't like them. It's called the public test environment, right? The public beta environment. Those changes aren't guaranteed to go live. Well, now here is the issue. We're running into, if you might be noticing here, all the things I just talked about are coming together, aren't they? So we have a champion, Leblanc, with a dash, which can dash twice. On a reasonably low cooldown of 18 to 10, that means she can dash, and then 10 seconds later, dash, then dash again. Or potentially use her ultimate to dash, then dash, then dash, then dash, then dash, then dash. It's hard to deal with, okay? And so when Static Shiv can proc up and get more Static Shiv electroshocks based on how many times and how far you dash, that means that Leblanc is proccing this item a lot. She has been an issue with Static Shiv for a very, very, very long time. Riot has done almost nothing to address this problem. The only thing they ever did was nerf the AP ratio. Well, let's go into this. With the AP ratio being nerfed and hybrid itemization being pointless, did Leblanc players say, that's it guys, time to give up on the hybrid thing and go full AP? No. They decided, time to give up on the hybrid thing and go full AD. And that's what they did. Leblanc players are now building full AD, and they are just dominating top lane with this. Trinity, with its on hit, is doing decent burst on her, even with her lower base damage. Static Shiv is doing a lot of procs on her and giving her good burst damage. Then Hullbreaker allows her to clear out turrets and actually be a threat in the split push. So you might be seeing the problem here. We have a band-aid on a band-aid that got removed, a band-aid on a band-aid that got removed. We have a champion that is all band-aids that has never actually gotten a band-aid. We have a band-aid, we have a band-aid, and we have another band-aid, and oh, look at that, a band-aid. We have all these different band-aid solutions to problems that have existed in the game for years now. For a very long time, in fact. And unfortunately, this is all coming undone and hitting us now. Now let's talk about this semi-recent patch. What has Riot done recently? Well, you see, one of Leblanc's biggest issues is her wave clear. She doesn't really have much wave clear. Static Shiv gives her wave clear. Ta-da! So, Static Shiv was removed and then it was added back into the game. Riot Frake, the smartest mad lad to ever be mad ladding, decided, and he took it upon himself, that he was the smartest man in the universe. He knew better than everyone else. Static Shiv was removed 3 years ago. He said, why? Why would it possibly be removed? It was such a good, healthy item. People liked it being in the game. So he added it back into the game, and he gave it bonus damage against minions, and it gives additional bounces on minions at the higher levels. Ooh-wee, you might be saying to yourself, wow, what a great guy. What a great decision this has been. Well, he then decided to buff the energized damage, so the amount of burst it does, buff the damage against minions, buff everything about the item. Well, he removed the AP ratio from the minion clear, nerfed the AP ratio on the item, nerfed the minion damage on the item again, gave it more attack speed, nerfed the AP ratio again, gave it more damage, and reduced its minion damage again. So we now have an item that does 50 damage. That's the old one. We now have an item that does 50 damage with 30% attack speed and a crit modifier and burst magic damage. Well, these are a lot of modifiers. These are a lot of damages. Unfortunately, the item has only really seen use on two champions who kind of break the game, LeBlanc and Kai'Sa. Oh, Kai'Sa, you might be saying to yourself, Kai'Sa breaks the game? Oh, in fact, she does. See, Freak, hallowed be his name, his infinite wisdom, his smartiness. Freak is such an intelligent man that he, for some reason, has never Googled Kai'Sa and noticed that Kai'Sa's pick rate is kind of insane. In fact, if we go to Kai'Sa's pick rate and we go to her pick rate, we can see that for every time Ezreal is picked, Kai'Sa is picked 1.5 times. Kai'Sa is picked 50% more than Ezreal. Do you understand what that means? Kai'Sa is so far the most picked champion in the game that it is not even close. Now, I drew up a paint picture here. This is an artistic rendition of why Static Shiv breaks certain champions, okay? This is me. You can see on the left here, this is me, okay? Now, I, over here on the left, am trying to push into my opponent because they are late game and they're stopping me. My opponent over here is using Static Shiv. They're standing far away from me. The Static Shiv hits a minion, hits a minion, hits a minion, hits a minion, hits a minion. They, on the other end of the map, are sitting way back and clearing the wave with the Static Shiv with complete safety. I cannot stop them from farming. This means if I'm stronger than my opponent on the split push, I can't actually push into them. And if I'm weaker than my opponent on the split push, I can't actually stop them from trying to push the wave because they just can clear the wave for much longer than I can. In addition, even if you are fighting an opponent you are stronger than, the turret here with its 2 arms being all muscly, because the turret is a big muscly man. Okay, this is the turret. The turret is sitting here and it is defending the person I'm trying to stop. I hope this artistic rendition of what's happening, that's my artistry skills, has gotten the point across here. Static Shiv allows you to either indefinitely stall out a lane, or it allows you to indefinitely push a lane from complete safety. It is not a fun item for anyone to deal with. Certain champions like Kai'Sa are very, very, very good at scaling and can stop other champions from pushing on them by just infinitely clearing the wave with Static Shiv. Some champions like Leblanc can be permanently pushing the wave while never really opening themselves up to any danger. In addition, the item has a lot of burst on it, having now 50 damage plus crit plus attack speed plus that large on-hit magic damage modifier. Do you get what I'm going with here? Static Shiv is just not a fun item for anyone to deal with. Some people complain about Hullbreaker, but if you ever tried to fight against a Static Shiv opponent, you would know just how bad it is for the game's health. If I am very fed and I'm pushing out a Static Shiv champion, I can't do anything. If a Static Shiv champion is fed, I can't really do anything. There's nothing you can do into Static Shiv if they actually know how to space, they actually know how to just clear the minion wave. There's just not a whole lot, unfortunately, you can do. Because of that, Kai'Sa, who is supposed to have shorter range and therefore be pushable, or at the very least have other champions that could maybe aggro her or stop her from farming mid-game or anything at all, can now permanently farm mid lane, bot lane, top lane. It doesn't matter. No one can actually stop her from farming right now. And because of that, she's picked by everyone in every single situation. Not just this patch, every patch. Even if we go back to the last recorded patch, her pick rate is still ludicrous. She has a ludicrous pick rate. It is insane. I don't know what else to say here, okay? So, the problem is in the semi-recent patch, they added back in one of the most broken items, and they haven't really adjusted it. Does it break the entire game? No. Does it break certain champions? Yes. Okay, now let's move on to the recent past. What has been happening recently? So, one thing that Freak and others will say is that LeBlanc, AD LeBlanc was not predictable. There's no way we could have seen AD LeBlanc coming. I dispute that. AD LeBlanc has been a niche build that has been on the cusp of viability for quite some time. To that I add, I literally just Googled it and saw multiple posts talking about AD LeBlanc within the LeBlanc subreddit just in 11 months ago, 2 months ago, and 2 months ago. We can even see 2 months ago, they were doing Static Shiv. In fact, actually, if we see right here, we can see 2 months ago, somebody said, Shiv, Triforce, Hullbreaker, LeBlanc top since 13.11. Since 13.11. When was Static Shiv added? Static Shiv was added in 13.10. So we can see a mere month after, literally a mere month after Static Shiv, 2 weeks actually, one patch after Static Shiv was added into the game again, we already had people that were talking about it and doing it. Okay? So this wasn't like something that just cropped out of nowhere. No one could have seen it coming. This is something, literally, if you Google AD LeBlanc and you just, wow, I'm good at typing. AD LeBlanc Reddit. Just Google that and you can see many, many people talking about it over 2012, 2013. This isn't some like hidden treasure that nobody knew about, okay? I promise you. And so in the recent past, people have just been kind of piecing this together. They've been figuring out what is the best build for LeBlanc and how do we make her viable. Finally, then we have Bobkin put out his post here 5 days ago. He put out his post where we finally start talking about LeBlanc. And the problem is there's nothing that contained LeBlanc. Because Riot refused to address the Static Shiv interaction with LeBlanc, because Riot refuses to make Trinity actually good on melee and not just ranged champions, because Riot refuses to address the Static Shiv issue as a whole. We just have a huge gap in Riot's balance. They don't know what they're doing when they nerf Doran's shield. They don't know what they're doing when they nerf Second Wind. They don't know what they're doing when they constantly buff and nerf LeBlanc, even with her absolutely broken distortion that leaves no counterplay for melee. Like, let me just put this to be clear to you guys. If there was a champion, let's call him Blasuo, and Blasuo was the exact same as Yasuo, but Blasuo had Wind Wall on a 10-second cooldown, that would be considered generally very unfun for champions to deal with. What would he need to do to balance him? Oh, we could balance his win rate. We could nerf maybe his damage, we could nerf his survivability until he went down to a 50-50 win rate. He still absolutely destroyed ranged champions, but Blasuo was weak into melee. And that's, in my opinion, LeBlanc right now. She just absolutely destroys melee champions. Distortion is a completely busted ability. There are champions who are anti-melee, right? But LeBlanc has always been in this weird spot where the only real counterplay to her as a melee character is to just kind of ignore her. Because you can't really fight back against her. Not really. And so she's kind of given, let's say, lower damage, right? She does have high damage on her Q procs for sure. She's given lower damage on distortion. She's got good damage on her chains, but like realistically, you just run away from LeBlanc and you hope that her low sustained damage can't kill you. Well, introducing LeBlanc, now with sustained damage, called Static Shiv. Do you get the problem here? LeBlanc has never been balanced. She's always been balanced that melee champions will build health, will build magic resist, and they'll tank through her. So then she's not really that big of an issue because you have to try to tank through her, right? But oh wait, now she has sustained damage. And now we have AD LeBlanc top. So of course, Riot Freak decided a few days ago that he was going to comment on this problem. He put out a tweet, which I read. Well, I didn't actually read him because he blocked me. A rioter blocked me on Twitter because apparently I was being mean to their balance decisions. So, my bad, everyone. Sorry, I won't be mean to Freak. It's not like he does terrible short-sighted design decisions, right? Surely he doesn't do anything like nerf all melee champions' ability to survive ranged champions, then buff ranged champions, then refuse to address LeBlanc, Static Shiv, Deathcap, Trinity, any design decisions whatsoever, make everything a band-aid short-term solution. Surely he never would do anything like that, right? They always have a future planned. We never get complete blindsided things like, oh crap, guys, Worlds is about to be dominated by AD LeBlanc. Surely that would never happen, would it? So I think it's wrong to criticize Freak, and that's what it is, criticizing, not insulting him. I would say that calling Freak a narcissistic man who cannot accept criticism, who is just basically way in over his head, and is overly stubborn to the point of holding on to terrible design decisions until they're so bad that they come back to blow up in his hands, taking off several figures. That's not saying that Freak is lacking fingers because he keeps holding on to things until they blow up. That's not an insult. That is a criticism, okay? What I'm doing right here is criticizing him. And anyway, what he did tweet was, we intend to include changes that address AD LeBlanc top in 13.19. We playtested the first iteration this evening, and it's looking promising. So the problem here, Mr. Freak, the problem here is all of this was avoidable if your team and you put actual time into the game. Ignoring LeBlanc for as long as you could, ignoring it for as much as you could until it became a catastrophe is not the right way to do things. And now what we have is hopefully based balance. Hope-based balance. Balance not based on stats. Balance not based on what you would call evidence, but hope-based balance. Balance-based because we just hope this will work out. Because we completely wasted the last 4 months that Static Shiv has been out. We completely broke the balance of the game with the AD carry item update. We broke League of Legends. We refused to address it. We refused to fix it. We refused to address LeBlanc. Now we just need to hope that we can throw enough stuff at the wall that it sticks and people stop pointing out that we're kind of bad at our job. So what is our current direction? Nerf Shiv. 13.18 didn't nerf the wave clear enough, which I start to wonder, why does it even have wave clear if even 200 minion damage is still too much? At what point do we say, okay guys, maybe Static Shiv was a bad idea? You know, at what point do you as a company go, Okay, guys, Static Shiv. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Nerf LeBlanc's AD, lower Triforce plus attack speed synergy. Nerf LeBlanc's mana pool to require building mana again. Small spell AP increases to hopefully tread water on AP builds. Now, here's something that maybe some of you didn't actually know or notice or anything like that, okay? So, one of the things Riot did recently is they gave LeBlanc a huge mana increase. In 13.3, they gave her huge more mana regeneration growth, and reduced the mana cost on her Q. Additionally, in 12.14, they gave her more mana growth. They've basically been buffing LeBlanc's mana for a while now. Now, I, of course, have been critical of that every single time it's happened. What have I always said? The only way for melee characters to survive LeBlanc is for her to run out of mana. If she can't run out of mana because she now has near infinite mana due to all their buffs, then melee characters can't ever do anything. Do you understand? If I talked about this earlier this season, if I talked about this last season, people would come to me and they would tell me, Hashinshin, you're crazy. Hashinshin, you're wrong. Hashinshin, you're stupid. Hashinshin, you're ugly. Hashinshin, I just don't like you. Hashinshin, I'm not buying your feet pics. Okay, people would come up to me and they would say that if I said, ooh, guys, maybe buffing LeBlanc's mana is a bad idea. But here we are. And if you go back to my videos, you will likely see me saying that, where I go, well, I don't think that's a good idea, but okay, right? Because there's no way to fight LeBlanc other than to run her out of mana in the laning phase. That's all you can do as a melee character. But here we see that now Riot is going back, and they've decided that we need to nerf LeBlanc's mana, which undoes 2 years of LeBlanc's mana buffs. Good, but okay. Now we have small spell AP ratio to hopefully tread water on AP builds. That's where we're at. We're hopeful, chat. I mean, let's be honest. Do they actually think LeBlanc is still going to be viable after this? Maybe. Maybe not. Do they care? Also, again, maybe not. I don't think they care, because we have to do emergency patches. We have to do things that we probably didn't want to do entirely because we didn't do our job for 4 months. And now here we are in a terrible position because we screwed up the game because we're lazy and we don't pay attention. I swear to God, these were the changes that people literally asked for when we saw this shit, LOL. It's interesting. These kinds of things are the eventual results of power creep. Yeah, power creep, because you slowly power creep the game. You just slowly make everyone stronger because everyone else is getting stronger because everyone else is getting stronger. LeBlanc needs to have no mana costs because other champions have no mana costs. LeBlanc needs to keep her melee immunity because you made Yone. Yone has 3 gap closers and a movement speed buff, so LeBlanc needs to keep her 4 gap closers to beat him, right? But the problem is any champion not at the Yone level can't really contend with LeBlanc. Certainly, Shiv returning as a good first item is the straw that broke the camel's back, and I did a rather poor job of getting the item in a fair state sooner. Well, yeah, but that doesn't... See, the thing is, I think Freak has this habit where, like, he admits a fault, but then, like, he keeps admitting a fault while not actually, like, taking criticism to heart. If someone came back and told him, you know, even a month ago, a week ago, if someone told him a week ago, I think the wave clear on Static Shiv is a bit too much, Freak. You think it might be imbalancing some champions? What would he say? Actually, I think that's just a LeBlanc problem. That's not really a game balance issue. But now here we are, and he's admitting that it's a problem. And that's the problem. Freak only admits it's a mistake if he's the one who found out it was a mistake. Like, he's disagreeing with himself. Like, oh man, I was the smartest man ever, but now I'm even the smartest man ever because I realized that I wasn't as smart as me in the past, right? Like, it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like if someone else, basically, you need to trick Freak into thinking everything is his decision and that he's the smartest man ever, because he literally cannot take criticism. I spent much of summer just being like, okay, LeBlanc abuses Shiv. We have to keep tuning Shiv to make it not dominant on LeBlanc, despite LeBlanc being the only gracious user after first balance patch, which, again, is untrue. That's not true. If we were to go to Freak right now and I told them, dude, Kai'Sa is just totally out of control. She is just being picked more than anyone else by such an absurd margin. It's ridiculous. Like, you have to deal with this champion. You must balance Kaisa. If I was to tell him that, he would say, no, I don't actually think so. I think you're wrong. And then he would block me on Twitter. But if in a week from now, if 2 weeks from now, he comes up and he says, actually, I was wrong. Kaisa is an overuser of Static Shiv. We think that it's removing a lot of her. Like, if he says that, he'll be like, I'm the smartest man for ever realizing my past mistakes. But like, it's so obvious what he's saying is bullshit. It pisses me off. Because it's just like, dude, come on. Really? The only Agracious champion abusing Static Shiv is LeBlanc. Not, just off the top of my head, Kaisa. No, not Kaisa. Okay, whatever. But actually, LeBlanc is a bunch of small things that just slowly fell out of line. No individual change made this build appear, but the end result is she just kind of tuned weird right now. And scales with mage items worse than other mages do, so she just buys other items instead. No, dude, she doesn't scale worse with mage items. It's just really, really, really easy for her to abuse her W. Her W procs Trinity, and it procs Static Shiv. She W's forward, boom, Trinity plus Static Shiv proc. You jump on her, she W's back. Oh no, now she's moved a lot, Static Shiv proc. Do you understand the problem here, freak? You've never addressed or adjusted Static Shiv. Even if you did something like an ability can only be used to proc the energize once. So using her W once procced it, the second time didn't proc it, right? Like anything. If you did anything at all to address Static Shiv on LeBlanc, but you didn't. You just kept ignoring the problem and being like, well, if we nerf its AP ratio, well, why does it even have an AP ratio? So it can be used on hybrids, but hybrids will, it just, oh my God, dude, I get a headache when talking about this because it's so obvious to me. It annoys the crap out of me how other people can't realize this. And no, she doesn't scale worse with mage items than other mages do, my dude. She has a giant AP ratio on her spammable Q. You just gave it ludicrous base damage because, you wanted her to kill people in the laning phase. Yes, distortion doesn't scale well, but her change sure as shit does with a 1.0 AP ratio. We have a 0.8 AP ratio here, a 1.0 AP ratio here, a 0.6 AP ratio here. Hold on here. You're telling me, let's be real here. I'm going to look up Fizz. I'm just going to compare. For the sake of comparison, let's compare this to Fizz, okay? So we have both their main nukes here. LeBlanc has a 0.8 AP ratio. Fizz has a 0.5 AP ratio. On the E, okay? On the W. Fizz's W is a 0.5 AP ratio and a 0.4 AP ratio over the dot. Okay? Oh boy, what is this? Oh god, I forgot how his W works. So how does this work now? Okay, he gets a bonus magic damage, and then he gets bonus magic damage on hit again. So it's really confusing because he's got the dot, then the bonus damage, and then the bonus magic damage on hit. So is this, if the target is not killed, the target is killed, it resets and he gets this. So it's not killed, he gets what, a 0.85, I think, over 2 attacks. So let's compare it. So 0.8 to 0.8. I know I'm getting off track here, but I'm trying to compare this fairly. And I just remembered Fizz's W is really weird now. So it's a 0.8 to a 0.55. It's a 0.6, I'm going to say leniently, to a 0.85. It's a 1.0 to a 0.9. And then LeBlanc's ultimate allows her to double an ability with even more damage. Does everybody get that? So in this situation, LeBlanc and Fizz are scaling about the same. LeBlanc, actually, if she ults, her chain scales better than Fizz overall. So does LeBlanc scale worse than other AP assassins? Well, no. No, she doesn't. She doesn't scale worse on mage items. That's not the problem, not really. The problem is she just scales really, really good on AD items. We don't see champions like Fizz going Trinity with a Static Shiv, do we? We don't see that. Sure, in the past, Fizz used to do that. He used to build AD itemization. That has since been fixed. We addressed a lot of that problems, right? LeBlanc, on the other hand, has issues where her distortion is just chain procking Static Shiv over and over, and Static Shiv is giving her wave clear. So she can get amazing wave clear and burst on one item. That is the problem here, freak. And it's like he doesn't want to admit it. where primarily she has awful wave clear without shift. Won't lowering her AD make it even worse? We're primarily hitting AD growth, so it will be unfeelable at level 1, and then be negligible for a while if she's mostly relying on spells. There isn't any single change that can literally only hit AD LeBlanc. It's just about reining in collateral damage and trying to retain her overall power level on intended builds, which is good and fine if you weren't scrambling at the last second. Because, guys, it's like, okay, let me put it this way. It's like there was a test that was put out. It was like Riot had a test, and they had 4 months to study for it. And then at the last second, the teacher's like, pencils down, and Freak is sitting there like, hold on. I'm putting it down. Okay, just what 1 second. Like, that's what he's doing. He's just, it's like, oh my God, I just don't. The more changes you include, the harder it is to get right. Now, what is this a response to, Freak? What are you doing here? Should base damage nerfs on abilities also be included? The more changes you include, the harder it is to get it right. Which is true. I do agree with you here, Freak. The only problem is, once again, you're scribbling a bunch of shit at the last second because you didn't do any work over 4 months. Nerf Shiv. Surely the 5th nerf to wave clear specifically will be enough. To be fair, we started with buffing it twice. That was wrong. See, like, he agrees with himself only when he agrees. Like, he can criticize himself only when he's the one criticizing himself, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to describe it better than that, but that's how he always does it. If LeBlanc never touched the item, would you have nerfed it over and over? The goal was to get Kraken, Stormrazer, and Shiv to be roughly equally powerful. It's fine if one was more popular than the other. Kraken we hit pretty quickly. Shiv people considered underpowered but wasn't after the first set of changes. And eventually people we caught on. Stormrazer we slightly over-nerfed. I wish we hadn't kept pushing the minion mod when initially tuning it to live. It launched with more than enough minion damage, and we should have just given it stats instead. Okay, like, do you see what I mean? Like, he doesn't answer the question because, like, he doesn't want to answer the question, right? And he just, like, he goes for a different direction. And he just, like, it's like he criticizes himself, but only when he's the one smart enough to. I don't know a better way to describe it. It's so weird to me. May I ask why I haven't thought about going in a different direction instead of nerfing the item? So I'm reading all these because I'm just trying to get you guys into the idea of why we're not getting better changes. I truly don't believe Shiv needs a skill with AD or crit. It already scales hard. It already scales hits with level. The item stat profile is bad on mages. Well, yeah, it has no AP, dude. What do you want to do? The fact that LeBlanc and only LeBlanc abuses this item means this is a LeBlanc scaling problem, not a mage poaching problem. Well, yeah, true, but, like, why have we not adjusted it then? We're trying to make items scale less, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't want to give it AD and crit because he doesn't want it to scale harder because he wants to depower items. Okay, I agree. I get it. But, like, dude, how do you keep saying it's a LeBlanc problem? How do you keep saying it's a LeBlanc problem, then not adjusting LeBlanc? It's like the only thing he wants to do is to not actually touch LeBlanc. I don't understand. It's not even like mages... Sorry, it's not even like AD carries have that many dashes. Like, when you look into it, Kai'Sa only dashes on her ultimate. The other thing is a movement speed buff. Who else uses it? Zeri? She's got a dash on her W. Other than that, she just moves really quickly, right? Like, Vayne, I guess she has a tumble on her cube. That's it, right? Like so few of these champions actually dash. Like, dash. Sivir, she doesn't dash either. So it makes no sense to me. Why not just make dashes not affect the item? The only champion who will really be affected that I can see is Vayne. That's it. That's literally it. Are we so obsessed with Vayne that, like, this is it? Like, at this point you're choosing, do we make 900 trillion changes to fuck with LeBlanc's balance, or do we just buff Vayne in a different way? Like, change static Shiv, great. LeBlanc can't use it now. And now Vayne is weaker. Great, then we just change something about Vayne. Like, it would literally just be that easy. It's crazy to me. I think since patch 13.14, Shiv nerf, it's become clear that it's a LeBlanc problem and not a Shiv AP ratio problem. But LeBlanc herself, since she is the only mage assassin that builds the item, because she can get away with a lot of things, now she is building full-on AD. So the Shiv AP ratio is the problem was wrong, since she is building 0 AP now. Yep, and if this build popped up in 13.14, we would have addressed AD LeBlanc much sooner, but it did. And this is the point of me trying to bring this up here earlier. Here's the thing. It has been getting talked about in the LeBlanc main subreddit. It has been getting everywhere. And here's the thing. We can literally see it still being a LeBlanc problem. Because even after they have giga-stomped its AP ratio, even after they've done all this, LeBlanc is still the 9th highest pick mid laner at Masters Plus. That means they are okay with LeBlanc abusing static Shiv. They're okay with LeBlanc chain wave clearing into roaming. They're just not okay with it when she builds pure AD. Because what? That makes their team look bad? Because that makes them look stupid? I mean, we can see right here, Static Shiv is blatantly her most built item. It has been an issue, okay? We go back to 13.14. Oh, let's go back to 13.14. Yeah, this build that popped up in 13.14. But what is the difference here? We can see here in 13.14, she's building Static Shiv. Is it just that she built full AD? Is that the problem? That she was building full AD? I mean, even if we go back to 13.14 at Masters Plus, we can see that people were still experimenting with this Hullbreaker stuff, right? Like, I'm not crazy. We can see 6 games were played with Hullbreaker, at LeBlanc Masters Plus in top lane. Now, that's not a lot. No, only 6. But what I'm saying is people were building Static Shiv on LeBlanc this entire time. It's only recently people decided to ditch it for a pure AD build because, realistically, it's hard to scale up AP by 3 items, right? Like, if your first item isn't AP, that means your second and third need to be AP. So at best, you can do, like, Static Shiv into Luden's Echo into Lichbane. Is that fine? Is that a good build for the game? Is that a healthy build? So, like, let's go back to mid lane. Is it totally fine and healthy for Static Shiv, Night Harvester, Lichbane, where she just W's forward, procs Lichbane, W's back, procs Static Shiv, W's forward, procs Lichbane, and Static Shiv, W's procs Static Shiv? Like, that's fine. That's good for the game. But when she builds AD and goes top lane, suddenly it's destroying the game. And let's be clear, the only reason she's really even going AD isn't because of some, like, crazy thing. It's because Hullbreaker gives her split push. In the past, LeBlanc couldn't kill turrets quick enough. She couldn't. So if you let LeBlanc split push with her Static Shiv and all that, she wouldn't be enough of a threat to your team, right? But now people have said, well, what if we just go Hullbreaker? And if I go Hullbreaker and Static Shiv, what's even the point of going an AP item? So screw it, let's just go Trinity. So now people are doing that build, and it's like they're panicking, and they're like, oh god, they found a way to make that really annoying build that was viable, now viable again. Like, this, do you get what I'm trying to get frustrated at? It's because, like, the signs are all here. We know LeBlanc is a problem. People are experimenting with. It's being talked about. And it's like, you know what? It's literally the school of Zap Brannigan. Someone comes up, sir, there's a problem. And Freak just goes, call me when it's a catastrophe. Like, he doesn't want to address something until it's about to just completely explode and destroy worlds. If Static Shiv LeBlanc mid is ruining worlds and making it really unfun to deal with just perma wave push, they're fine because they're like, yay, killing people with a really unfun build, yay. But if it goes top lane and just split pushes because no one can really deal with it as a top laner, Riot goes, no, it's not assassinating people with a 0 counter build. No, that's unfun now. Like, it frustrates me. It frustrates me so much, okay? And that's what this entire video was about, okay? Because I'm just saying, right here, if AD LeBlanc's gameplay didn't suck, we wouldn't have a problem with it. But AD LeBlanc's gameplay is quite miserable. It is the same gameplay, now it's just split pushing. Let's be blunt. It is the same gameplay. Lichbane, Static Shiv, LeBlanc plays the same as Trinity Static Shiv LeBlanc. They're the same thing. Corporate asked me to differentiate these two pictures. They're the same thing. Okay? The only difference here is LeBlanc found a way to use their horrible anti-melee unfun build. They found a way to make that viable in the split push. and now it's destroying everyone in the split push, and now it's really bad for Riot because now she's not using her horrible, unfun gameplay to destroy mid laners into assassinating people with unfun bullshit. Now she's using this unfun bullshit to split push. And is that going to be, like, in all seriousness, is that going to be from now on? Is that where we are is like a balancer? Like if something assassinates people in an unfun way, it's good, but if you split push, then it's bad. Then why is Hullbreaker even in the game? Because then you're saying anytime Hullbreaker is viable in a champion, you're gonna kill it. So like, let me just ask you a question here: is Aatrox fun and good for the game when he team fights? But if someone found a funny Hullbreaker build that was consistent enough to split push with Aatrox, would you then kill him and the item? Or do you only kill him? Like, why is Hullbreaker even in the game if this seems to be the mitigator, right? So, and to be blunt, from the very beginning, we could have solved this issue. If we addressed Leblanc's balance, if we addressed Doran's shield's second wind, not allowing people to survive through the laning phase well enough. I mean, the fundamental problem here is Doran's shield's second wind are supposed to get you through the laning phase. Do you get it? And they're not. They're not right now. Okay. Does everyone get the problem here? Does everyone get the issue here? Does everyone understand what's happening? Okay, cool. That's going to be this video. That's what's frustrating me. Riot is terrible, short-sighted decisions, and they're catching up with them. And I truly believe we're going to start seeing, because they started to break apart the balance of the game here in the last couple of months. I think we're going to get to the Mythic item update, and things are going to go really downhill. And I'm really not happy with the game's balance right now. I'm afraid to even go queue up right now because, like, for the next 2 days, if I queue up there, guys, I played 11 games the other day. I think we're up to 8 of them were against some sort of ranged top liner at this point. Like, it's getting pretty bad. If you pick a melee champion, people just pick range into you. If you don't want to play against range, you basically just have to play Renekton and Aatrox. LeBlanc is getting so popular that, you know, people are just, it's bad. It's bad. This game is just, it's getting so bad. It's like, it's so weird to me because top lane is getting more fun by having better items, stronger champions, but then top lane is also getting less fun because Riot is pushing ranged champions and horrible gameplay into the game. So anyway, that's gonna be this video. That was AD LeBlanc. This is what's happening. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.